Emma's voice was sharp as she said, "I'm not canceling girls' night just because your mum's in hospital. She'll be fine." Sophie didn't argue. But when Emma returned the next morning, the empty flat spoke volumes. Mum was the toughest woman Sophie had ever known. She'd raised Sophie and her younger brother alone in the small market town of Ashby, juggling 2 jobs without ever letting them see her crack. Mum had taught Sophie the meaning of loyalty and sacrifice. So when her phone buzzed on a rainy Thursday afternoon with her brother's name flashing on the screen, Sophie felt that cold dread only a child gets when a parent is in trouble. Mum had fallen, hit her head. She was in hospital. Sophie left work immediately, her mind spinning with the worst possible scenarios. On the way, she dialed Emma, her girlfriend of 2 years. They'd been living together in Sophie's flat for the past year, and Sophie thought they were serious, building a life. "Hey," Sophie's voice shook. "I'm on my way to hospital. Mum's fallen. It might be serious." The line crackled with background laughter and music. "Oh, come on. Seriously?" Emma's tone was irritation, not concern. "Tonight? But it's girls' night. We've got reservations." Sophie blinked, stunned. "Emma, did you hear me? Mum's in hospital." "Yeah, I heard you," Emma snapped. "But what do you want me to do? I'm not a doctor. I'm not canceling girls' night just because your mum's in hospital. She'll be fine. She always is." The coldness hit Sophie like a slap. Mum, the woman who'd welcomed Emma into their family, was nothing more than a scheduling nuisance. Sophie said nothing. Something inside her just shut down. "You're right," she said, voice calm and hollow. "Go have fun." She hung up and kept driving through the drizzle, the city lights blurring past. The next 8 hours dragged in the sterile, humming waiting room of Ashby General Hospital. She and her brother clung to each other, terrified. At midnight, the doctor finally appeared. Mum had a concussion and a fractured wrist, but was stable. Relief nearly buckled Sophie's knees. Mum would need observation for a few days. Later, sitting beside Mum's hospital bed as she slept, Sophie's phone buzzed. A notification from social media. Emma had tagged herself in photos. Champagne glasses raised, laughter frozen in glossy images from some trendy new bar downtown. The caption read, "Some things are just too important to cancel." Sophie stared at the screen in the dim hospital room. Her relationship wasn't just over. It was about to be completely erased. Emma had treated her mum like an inconvenience. Now Sophie planned to show her what a real inconvenience looked like. And that was only the beginning. The sun was just beginning to peek over the rooftops of Ashby as Sophie finally left the hospital, her legs stiff from hours spent perched on a rigid plastic chair. The early morning light cast long shadows in her now empty flat, the silence thick and unsettling. The night's grief had crystallized into something cold and determined. Mum's doctor had been clear. She'd be discharged in a few days but would need constant care. Sophie's brother had a demanding job and young children to look after. The responsibility fell squarely on Sophie's shoulders. And this time, there was no room for distractions. Her first call was to a specialist moving company that promised discreet, lightning-fast service. Sophie explained she needed the flat cleared of one person's belongings, Emma's, and everything else moved or stored. Within 30 minutes, a team of no-nonsense movers arrived, their efficiency bordering on military precision. While they dismantled the life Emma had made in Sophie's home, Sophie's fingers danced over the phone. She reached the building's management, requesting Emma's key fob be deactivated immediately. Since Emma wasn't officially on the lease, the process was swift. Next, she called her bank to cancel their joint credit card, changed passwords, and set up fraud alerts. The movers worked silently but swiftly. In under 3 hours, every trace of Emma was packed, labeled, and loaded onto a van headed for a storage unit miles away. The plush velvet couch they'd picked out together, the sleek oak dining table, even the king-sized bed, all gone. By 11 a.m., the flat was a hollow shell, echoing with memories and empty spaces. Sophie then arranged delivery of hospital-grade equipment. An adjustable bed, a walker, a shower chair. She bought Mum's favorite teas, soft blankets, fresh fruit, and a new puzzle book to keep her mind sharp. The flat was transforming. From a battleground of neglect and selfishness into a sanctuary for healing, she set up the hospital bed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emma blinked on the screen. So hungover. On my way home. Don't forget to pick up my dry cleaning. Sophie didn't reply. She simply stared at the sterile room, the hospital bed dominating the space, and felt a quiet, fierce peace. Emma was coming home, but not to the life she expected. The empty flat wasn't revenge. It was a statement. A physical embodiment of the emptiness Emma showed Sophie when she needed her most. And Sophie was ready for what came next. At precisely 2:30 p.m., Emma arrived back at the flat. Sophie wasn't there. She was at the hospital with her mum. But the video doorbell caught every glorious, humiliating second. Emma sauntered up the porch steps, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose, a designer handbag swinging from one arm. She fumbled through it, pulling out her key fob, pressing it once. Nothing. Twice, still no click. She squinted, trying again, eyebrows knitting in confusion. Then, producing a manual key, she slid it into the lock. The key turned easily, but the deadbolt, changed that morning by building maintenance, refused to budge. Her confusion quickly curdled into irritation. She rapped sharply on the door, calling Sophie's name with mounting frustration. When no answer came, she pulled out her phone, dialing a number. Sophie's phone rang quietly on a bedside table miles away. A calm, deliberate tap declined the call. Emma stared at her screen, disbelief spreading across her face. She called again. Another tap. Denied. The camera captured her panic as it bubbled to the surface. She paced the small porch, hands raking through her hair, voice rising in a shrill shriek that echoed through the microphone. He locked me out. All my stuff's in there. Can you believe him? 20 minutes later, after a public meltdown worthy of a reality TV finale, she stormed off, heels clicking sharply against the pavement. A barrage of texts flooded Sophie's phone next. Angry accusations, bewildered questions, desperate pleas. But Sophie didn't respond, not once. That evening, Sophie sent a single, cold email. The subject line read, "Your new address." The body contained the storage unit's address, the unit number, the access code, and a scanned receipt confirming the unit was prepaid for 1 month. The final sentence was razor sharp. All your belongings have been safely stored. Please retrieve them at your earliest convenience. The next day, the real war began. Unable to reach Sophie, Emma unleashed her friends. Social media was soon flooded with vague, venomous stories about a controlling ex who'd thrown his girlfriend out with nothing. They painted Sophie as a monster, a tyrant. But Sophie had anticipated this. She documented everything, the time-stamped social posts of Emma's girls' night, the hangover text, the dry cleaning reminder. She compiled it all into a neat, irrefutable dossier and sent it privately to a select group of mutual friends. The reasonable ones, the ones who'd known her for years. Her message was simple and factual. I know you're seeing a lot online. Here's the full story. This is why I ended things. My mum is recovering. She is my priority. Rumors shifted like sand. The narrative flipped. Emma's image cracked, revealing a selfish woman who'd chosen champagne over compassion. 2 days later, Sophie brought Mum home, settling her into the hospital bed in the now quiet flat. Healing had begun. Then the phone rang. An unknown number. It was Emma's mother, furious and yelling accusations. Sophie let her vent, then spoke calmly. Your daughter chose to party while my mum lay injured in hospital. She told me, she'll be fine, then came home and asked me to pick up her dry cleaning. I moved her things into a secure storage unit and gave her the address. I've done nothing illegal or cruel. I simply removed someone who showed no heart when it mattered most. My mum is recovering in my home. She is my only concern. Please don't call again. She hung up. The silence that followed was the sound of a chapter closing, for good. The weeks that followed unfolded like the slow turning of a page, each day marked by quiet recovery and distant, fading chaos. Sophie's life now revolved entirely around her mum's healing. She took time off work, slipping into a rhythm of doctor's appointments, physiotherapy sessions, and long afternoons filled with puzzles and old black-and-white movies. Mum, once the iron-willed matriarch, was now a woman softened by vulnerability but still radiating strength. She wore soft cotton cardigans in gentle pastels, the kind that matched her silver hair pulled back loosely with a simple clip. Her hands, once rough from years of toil, now trembled slightly as she sipped her favorite chamomile tea from delicate china cups Sophie had bought. The flat, once echoing with tension, now filled with quiet laughter and the gentle rustle of pages turning. Sophie found herself learning about her mother anew. Stories of childhood hardships, tales of raising Sophie and her brother alone, sacrifices made without complaint. The bond between them deepened, a sanctuary built from shared resilience. Meanwhile, Emma's world was unraveling spectacularly. Her social media smear campaign backfired with the force of a poorly aimed javelin. Once her friends, quick to defend, now turned away, uncomfortable with the truth surfacing. Emma's glamorous facade cracked, revealing a woman adrift, her lifestyle consultancy, an Instagram-fueled illusion funded mostly by Sophie, collapsed overnight. Her apartment lease was terminated. With no income and a shrinking circle of friends, she moved back in with her parents in suburban Nottingham, a far cry from the chic city life she'd flaunted. Emma didn't go quietly. Sophie received a lengthy, threatening letter from a lawyer, accusing her of unlawful eviction and demanding compensation for emotional distress. Sophie forwarded it to her own solicitor, whose brief reply was a masterpiece of legal precision. A copy of the lease proving Emma was never a tenant, an itemized invoice of expenses she'd charged to Sophie's credit card, and a gentle reminder that slander carried serious consequences. Emma's lawyer vanished from the scene, and Sophie never heard from them again. One crisp autumn afternoon, Sophie took her mum to a quaint cafe near the physiotherapy clinic. Mum, now walking steadily with her walker, wore a soft lavender blouse and tailored trousers, her eyes shining with a newfound lightness as they stepped out. Sophie spotted a familiar figure across the street. Emma, the confident, sharp woman from before, was gone. Instead, Emma looked worn, her makeup smudged, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Their eyes met briefly. A flicker of shame, regret, maybe even a glimpse of the woman she used to be. Sophie offered a small, neutral nod before turning back to help her mum into the car. No anger.
No traíamos.
Just a quiet pity. Emma had made her choice, champagne over compassion, and now lived with the consequences. Mum was nearly fully recovered and preparing to move into a senior living community just blocks away, excited to reclaim her independence. Sophie felt a bittersweet ache at the thought of losing her presence in the flat, but treasured the closeness they'd rebuilt. Through it all, Sophie learned a profound truth. Sometimes the strongest act is to simply walk away. No shouting, no battles, just a quiet decision to protect your peace and those you love. She thought Emma's disregard for her mum was the worst inconvenience. But in the end, the only thing that really got cancelled was Emma. And yet, as Sophie locked the door that evening, a strange, unreadable text appeared on her phone from an unknown number. Asterisk, you think this is over? Think again. Asterisk, the screen went dark. Something was coming, and Sophie wasn't ready. The message lingered on Sophie's screen like a shadow she couldn't shake. Asterisk, you think this is over? Think again. Asterisk, she stared at it, heart pounding, fingers frozen above the keyboard. The unknown number was untraceable. A ghost in the digital night. That evening, the flat, once a haven of calm, felt suddenly heavy. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast long shadows across the walls, and the faint hum of the city outside seemed distant, as if muffled by an unseen weight. Mum, nestled under a thick quilt embroidered with delicate wildflowers, was asleep, her breathing steady and peaceful. Sophie sat beside her, hands folded, mind racing. Who could be sending these threats? Emma's bitterness had been fierce, but this felt different, colder, more deliberate. A warning or a promise? The silence was broken by a soft knock at the door. Sophie's pulse quickened. She wasn't expecting anyone. She crept to the peephole and squinted out, and just a small, plain envelope slipped beneath the door. Her hands trembled as she retrieved it, the paper cool and smooth under her fingers. Inside was a single photograph, grainy and black and white, showing the flat's exterior. A figure stood in the shadows, watching. No name. No message. Sophie swallowed hard, a chill crawling up her spine. The battle she thought she'd ended was far from over. Somewhere, someone was watching. Waiting? And this time, it wasn't just about Emma. The game had changed. Tomorrow, Sophie knew, would bring answers or danger. But tonight, all she could do was sit in the quiet, clutching her mother's hand, and prepare for the storm to come.